Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! As the reunion night unfolded, echoes of laughter and animated voices filled the air as former classmates, now grown, rekindled memories of their youthful past. An exuberant crowd had congregated in one dimly lit corner, captivated by the ageless thrill of truth or dare. Among them stood Ethan, his voice carrying across the room as he challenged, "Lachlan, truth or dare, old pal?" Lachlan, with a playful hesitation, ran his fingers through his hair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Dare," he blurted, a surprising turn of events even to himself. A whispered tumult washed over the gathering as Ethan's eyes sparkled with anticipation, glancing momentarily at his accomplices. "Then, for the remainder of the night, you shall adorn yourself in Olivia's crimson cocktail dress," Ethan announced, gesturing towards Lachlan's former flame seated nearby. Olivia, her eyebrow arched curiously, seemed both amused and intrigued by the unfolding scenario. The game had just begun, but the air crackled with anticipation and the promise of an unforgettable evening. "I'm game if you are, Lachlan." Lachlan's heart raced. He glanced around at the expectant faces, feeling a mix of anxiety and excitement. He couldn't quite place the feeling, but he knew backing down wasn't an option. "Fine," he said, trying to sound nonchalant. "Where can I change?" Olivia led him to a small coat room, handing him the silky red dress. "Don't rip it," she teased before closing the door. Alone in the dimly lit space, Lachlan held up the dress. Its fabric shimmered in the low light, and he found himself admiring its cut and style. With a deep breath, he began to undress, carefully folding his clothes. As he slipped the dress over his head, he was surprised by how smooth it felt against his skin. He fumbled with the zipper for a moment before finally getting it up. Turning to face the small mirror on the wall, Lachlan froze. The person staring back at him was different. The dress hugged his body in ways he'd never experienced before, accentuating curves he didn't know he had. He ran his hands down the sides, marveling at how the fabric clung to him. A knock on the door startled him out of his reverie. "You okay in there?" Olivia called. "Yeah, just adjusting," Lachlan replied, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. Taking another deep breath, he opened the door and stepped out. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. Lachlan felt his face flush, but something else stirred within him. A sense of rightness? "Wow," Ethan said, breaking the silence. "You actually pull that off pretty well, man." Laughter and applause erupted, and Lachlan found himself relaxing. As the night wore on, he became more comfortable in the dress. He moved differently, more gracefully. When he sat, he unconsciously crossed his legs. When he laughed, he noticed his hand coming up to cover his mouth delicately. By the time the party wound down, Lachlan had almost forgotten he was wearing a dress. It wasn't until Olivia approached him to reclaim her outfit that reality came crashing back. "You can keep it on until you get home if you want," she said with a wink. "It looks better on you anyway." Lachlan changed back into his clothes, but as he handed the dress back to Olivia, he felt a pang of loss. He shook his head, trying to clear the confusing thoughts. That night, as he lay in bed, Lachlan couldn't stop thinking about how he'd felt in that dress. It was more than just the novelty or the dare. there was something deeper, something that resonated within him. The next morning, he woke up with a strange sense of purpose. Before he could talk himself out of it, he found himself at a nearby thrift store, browsing through the women's section. His heart pounded as he selected a simple sundress, similar in style to Olivia's, but in a soft yellow color. Back at home, Lachlan closed all the curtains before slipping into the dress. As the fabric settled around him, he felt that same sense of rightness wash over him. He spent hours in front of the mirror, studying his reflection, adjusting his posture, experimenting with different ways of moving. Over the next few weeks, Lachlan's secret collection grew. Sundresses gave way to skirts and blouses, then to more elaborate dresses. He learned to apply makeup from online tutorials, marveling at how it softened his features and brought out his eyes. As the months passed, Lachlan found himself living a double life. By day, he maintained his masculine appearance, going to work in his usual slacks and button-down shirts. But evenings and weekends became sacred times for exploration and self-discovery. He chose the name Elise for his feminine self, practicing saying it aloud when he was alone.
"I'm Elise,"
he would whisper to his reflection, feeling a thrill each time. 6 months after the reunion, Lachlan, now Elise, stood in front of the mirror, putting the finishing touches on her makeup. She wore a stunning blue A-line dress that flowed gracefully to her knees, paired with matching heels. Her brown hair, grown out over the months, was styled into soft waves that framed her face. Tonight was a big step. After months of internal struggle and research, Elise had decided to attend a local support group meeting. Her hand trembled slightly as she applied her lipstick, but her eyes were determined. As she drove to the community center, Elise's mind raced with doubts and fears. What if she wasn't accepted? What if this was all a huge mistake? But beneath the anxiety, there was an undercurrent of excitement and hope. Elise parked her car and sat for a moment, gathering her courage. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror one last time, took a deep breath, and stepped out of the car. The click of her heels on the pavement echoed in the quiet evening air. Each step felt like a declaration, a step towards a truth she was only beginning to understand. At the door of the community center, Elise paused. This was it, the moment that would change everything. She reached for the handle, her blue painted nails contrasting against the metal. As she opened the door and stepped inside, Elise felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The room was filled with people of all ages and backgrounds, chatting and laughing. A sign on the wall read, "Welcome to our support group meeting." A woman with a kind smile approached her. "Hi there! Is this your first time joining us?" Elise nodded, finding her voice. "Yes, it is. I'm Elise." The woman's smile widened. "Welcome, Elise. We're so glad you're here. Come on in and make yourself comfortable." As Elise followed her into the room, she felt a sense of belonging she'd never experienced before. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen, not as Lachlan pretending to be someone else, but as Elise, finally being her authentic self. The meeting began, and as Elise listened to others share their stories, she felt less alone. When it came her turn to speak, she took a deep breath and began to share her journey, from that fateful night at the reunion to this moment. As she spoke, Elise felt a transformation taking place. With each word, she was shedding the last vestiges of Lachlan and fully embracing her true identity. The support and understanding in the room buoyed her, giving her strength she didn't know she possessed. After the meeting, As people mingled and chatted, Elise found herself in conversation with a diverse group of individuals, each with their own unique story. She listened intently, asking questions and sharing her own experiences. One woman, noticing Elise's blue dress, complimented her style. "That color is perfect on you," she said warmly. Elise beamed, running her hands over the fabric. "Thank you," she replied. "It's my favorite dress. I feel like me when I wear it." As the evening wound down, Elise exchanged contact information with several new friends. The sense of community she'd found was overwhelming, and she couldn't wait to explore this new chapter of her life. Driving home, Elise felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. She knew that. There would be challenges, difficult conversations, and moments of doubt. But for the first time, she felt equipped to face them. Back in her apartment, Elise stood in front of her mirror once again. But this time, instead of seeing a man in a dress, she saw herself. Truly herself. She smiled at her reflection, her eyes bright with hope and determination. "Hello, Elise," she said softly. "It's nice to finally meet you." As she carefully removed her makeup and changed into comfortable pajamas, Elise's mind was already racing with plans. She thought about telling her close friends, about exploring hormone therapy options, about building a new wardrobe that truly expressed who she was. The next morning, Elise woke up feeling more energized than she had in years. She had a day off work, and she decided to use it to take another step forward in her journey. After a quick breakfast, she headed to a nearby mall. Walking into a women's clothing store still made her heart race, but the confidence she'd gained from the support group meeting carried her forward. She browsed through racks of clothes, allowing herself to be drawn to styles and colors she'd always admired but never dared to wear in public. A friendly sales associate approached her, offering assistance. "Hi there! Can I help you find anything specific today?" the associate asked, with a warm smile. Elise took a deep breath. "Actually, yes," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm transitioning, and I'm looking to build a wardrobe that feels more like me." The associate's smile widened. "That's wonderful! Congratulations on your journey. I'd be more than happy to help you find some pieces that make you feel confident and beautiful." For the next 2 hours, Elise tried on a variety of outfits. She discovered that she loved the way A-line skirts twirled when she spun, how tailored blazers made her feel powerful, and how the right pair of jeans could make her feel both comfortable and feminine. As she stood in the fitting room, wearing a floral print wrap dress that hugged her body in all the right places, Elise felt tears welling up in her eyes. For so long, she had hidden this part of herself, afraid of judgment and rejection. But here she was, in a public place, being her true self, and the world hadn't ended. In fact, it felt like her world was just beginning. She left the store with several bags of clothes, each item carefully chosen to reflect her emerging style. As she walked through the mall, she noticed a salon and, on impulse, decided to go in. "Hi," she said to the stylist at the front desk. "I was wondering if you have any openings today. I'd like to get my hair done." The stylist checked the schedule and smiled. "You're in luck. We had a cancellation. What did you have in mind?" Elise ran her fingers through her brown hair, which she'd been growing out for months. "I'm not entirely sure," she admitted. "I've been growing it out, but I'd like something that looks more feminine." The stylist nodded understandingly. "How about we start with a deep conditioning treatment to add some shine, and then we can do some layers to frame your face? We could also add some subtle highlights if you'd like. It can really brighten up your whole look. Elise nodded eagerly. That sounds perfect. As she sat in the salon chair, watching her transformation in the mirror, Elise felt a sense of excitement building. Each snip of the scissors, each stroke of the brush, seemed to bring her closer to the person she'd always known she was inside. When the stylist finally spun her chair around to face the mirror, Elise gasped. The person looking back at her was undeniably feminine. Soft layers framed her face, and subtle caramel highlights caught the light, making her brown hair shine. "What do you think?" the stylist asked, beaming with pride at her work. Elise touched her hair gently, afraid it might all be a dream. "It's perfect," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much." Leaving the salon, Elise felt like a new person. She walked taller, her confidence growing with each step. She caught her reflection in store windows as she passed, hardly believing the woman she saw was really her. As she approached her car, her phone buzzed with a text message. It was from one of the friends she'd made at the support group meeting the night before, inviting her to a small gathering at a local cafe. Elise hesitated for a moment. She was still wearing the floral wrap dress she'd bought earlier, and her new hairstyle was a significant change. Was she ready to be seen like this by others in the community? Taking a deep breath, she typed out a reply. "I'd love to join you. See you soon." She drove to the cafe, her heart pounding with a mix of nervousness and excitement. As she parked and checked her reflection one last time, she reminded herself of how far she'd come. This was who she was meant to be. Walking into the cafe, Elise spotted the small group at a corner table. As she approached, she saw looks of pleasant surprise on their faces. "Elise!" her friend from the support group exclaimed. "Wow, you look amazing! Is this a new look?" Elise smiled, feeling a blush creep across her cheeks. "Yes, I decided it was time for a change. Do you like it?" The group showered her with compliments, making her feel welcome and accepted. As they chatted over coffee and pastries, Elise found herself opening up more about her journey, her hopes, and her fears. "I'm thinking about coming out to my family soon," she confided, stirring her latte absently. "I'm just not sure how they'll react." The others nodded sympathetically, sharing their own coming-out stories and offering advice and support. Elise felt a warmth spreading through her chest, grateful for this new community she'd found. As the afternoon wore on, Elise realized she felt more comfortable in her own skin than she ever had before. The constant discomfort and unease she'd felt for years had been replaced by a sense of peace and rightness. When it was time to leave, Elise hugged her new friends goodbye, promising to stay in touch and attend the next support group meeting. As she walked back to her car, she felt a newfound strength coursing through her veins. That evening, as she hung up her new clothes and admired her reflection one last time before bed, Elise made a decision. It was time to fully embrace her truth, to step into the light as her authentic self. She sat down at her desk and opened her laptop, taking a deep breath before beginning to type. "Dear Mom and Dad, there's something important I need to tell you. I've been on a journey of self-discovery, and I've come to understand a fundamental truth about myself. I am transgender. The person you've known as your son is actually your daughter. I know this may come as a shock, and you probably have a lot of questions. I want you to know that I'm still the same person you've always loved. I'm just finally being honest about who I truly am. My name is Elise now, and I hope you'll be able to accept and support me as I move forward in my transition. I love you both very much, and I hope we can talk about this in person soon. Love, Elise. Her finger hovered over the send button for a long moment before she finally clicked it. As the email disappeared into cyberspace, Elise felt a mixture of fear and relief wash over her. She closed her laptop and got ready for bed, her mind swirling with thoughts of what the future might hold. As she drifted off to sleep, she felt, for the first time in her life, that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The next morning, Elise woke to the sound of her phone buzzing. Her heart raced as she saw it was a call from her mother. Taking a deep breath, she answered. "Hello?" she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Oh, sweetheart," her mother's voice came through, filled with emotion. "We got your email. Are you okay? We love you so much, and we want you to know that hasn't changed." Tears sprang to Elise's eyes as she listened to her mother's words of acceptance and love. They talked for over an hour, with Elise explaining her journey and her parents asking questions, trying to understand. By the end of the call, plans were made for Elise to visit home the following weekend. As she hung up, Elise felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but knowing she had her parents' support made all the difference. Over the next few months, Elise's life underwent a dramatic transformation. She came out to her friends and coworkers, started hormone therapy, and began the process of legally changing her name and gender marker. There were difficult moments. Not everyone in her life was immediately accepting, and the bureaucratic processes were often frustrating. But for every setback, there were moments of joy and affirmation that made it all worthwhile. 1 year after that fateful game of truth or dare, Elise stood in front of her mirror once again. She wore a beautiful green cocktail dress, similar in style to the red one that had started her journey, but this one was all her own. Her brown hair, now long and styled in elegant waves, framed her softened features. Hormone therapy had worked its subtle magic, rounding out her face and giving her body a more feminine shape. As she applied the finishing touches to her makeup, Elise smiled at her reflection. Tonight, she was attending a gala event for a local LGBTQ+ charity, not as an uncertain newcomer, but as a confident woman who had found her place in the world. She thought back to that night at the reunion, to the confused and conflicted person she had been. So much had changed since then, but the most important change had been within herself. She had found the courage to be true to who she was, to live authentically despite the challenges. As she left her apartment and stepped out into the warm evening air, Elise felt a sense of excitement for what the future held. Her journey was far from over. In many ways, it was just beginning. But now, she was facing that future as her true self, surrounded by love and support. The streetlights caught the sparkle of her dress as she walked, head held high, towards her waiting taxi. Elise was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that she had finally become the person she was always meant to be.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!